The way that I connect to my body today is so different to when I started in my fitness journey 30 years ago. And the way that I experience my body as a whole began about 20 years ago. And I often sit here wondering, why are we still being taught movement from a musculoskeletal paradigm? So you might be watching this, you are a yoga teacher, Pilates teacher, movement professional, or body worker. And what I want to share with you today is just 3 simple ways to maybe teach your clients or experience fascial anatomy in your own body. Now, I love the somatic approach to fascia, and that's how I'm going to guide it to you today. So, number 1, the word to remember is continuity. In the fascial anatomy space, this word continuity comes up. It means that there is no separation in your body. There are no separate parts. There is differentiation, but no separation. Before muscles and bones and your nervous system and even your brain emerge at embryo stage, there is fascia and there is continuity. So just remember that. Number 1, there is no separation. Number 2, this fascia or soft matter, as it's sometimes referred to, shapes our body in a particular structure that's super efficient. And the word that's being used to describe this structure is tensegrity or biotensegrity. Biotensegrity is a term that's used by the orthopedic surgeon Stephen Levin, or fasciategrity, which is a term that's being used by John Sharkey, clinical anatomist, and Joanne Avison, a fascia educator. So let's just recap. Number 1, continuity. There is no separation in our body. We are one fabric. Number 2 is our structure is really efficient, the geometry of our structure, and it's called tensegrity. So what is tensegrity? So tensegrity means that a structure is held by forces of tension and compression. So it means there's a force pushing out and a force pushing in, and they equalize each other. So it is already held, it is pre-tensioned. An example of that is this grapefruit. Okay, so it's round, and if we had to peel this grapefruit into segments, it means we're kind of dissecting it out of its whole structure. So this grapefruit has a force pushing outwards and a force pushing in. So it's held in the round. And in our body, everything from the smallest molecule to our entire form is held by these forces, which means that our spine isn't stacking up as a column. The bones are floating within this sea of tension, which means that if we have vertebra, they are not held stacking upright as we tell people to do, but they are held. So if you had to look at it, it's a bit like a tent. So a tent is held outwards in every direction, right? There is forces pushing in every direction from the inside out, which means that it's held in that state independent of gravity. So what does that mean for us? We can be sitting in any orientation. I could be sitting here and finding ease and softness in the body, and I don't have to add any force here. I'm already held. Now, if the fascia becomes stiff and tight, it might take us out of that integrity, which means we might be pulling somewhere. But if we are held with the least amount of strain in our body, we can sit with ease. So I can sit here, whether I'm sitting in a chair, doesn't matter where I am, I can tune in and sense what feels most easeful and what feels most comfortable for me in my body. And it's that sensation that allows me to self-adjust my structure. It means that I can shape change and still be in integrity rather than in alignment. So changing the word alignment to integrity. So instead of talking about alignment, aligning the spine, when something feels stiff or we want to ease a particular area, there's a way of moving from the inside out that allows integrity to arise. So moving from alignment to integrity. Okay. And then staying with the theme of biotensegrity or fascia-integrity, one of the coolest things about this continuity is that when you move one part, everything moves. So if I'm just moving at my foot, like I am here, I can hang out here and I can move. And one of the other cool things is you can shape change. You don't have to have your body in a particular position, just allowing yourself to listen and adjust into a natural pattern. So when I'm guiding movement, there's no prescribed way of being. It's just hanging out. So here I am. If I'm sitting here, I can move to wherever feels most easeful for me. It might be here, for example. So tensegrity, remember, it means that the structure is already held by internal forces. We don't need to be adding force to it. Now, we do need to condition our body's fascia. We do need to hydrate. The other word to remember is to hydrate our body's fascia, not stretch, but hydrate. Hydration restores the integrity. It allows our body to shock absorb. And I'll be sharing more in another video around those properties of fascia. But for now, we've got number one, continuity. Number two, the way that we're shaped into this structure that is already has this inner stability. And the third is that when we move, there's a whole body response. And sticking to this kind of third paradigm where when we're moving, everything responds, to recognize how the body moves. How does the body move? When I move, what's happening? And you might notice that there's a spiral motion, right? So if I'm moving, my body is kind of doing this. It's moving like this, one way and then the other. And that kind of motion is possible because of the nature of our design. There's a term called chirality. Chirality means that one way and then the other. And in movement terms, because I like keeping it really simple, it just means that you're moving one way and the other, or that your body is moving in a spiral. So there's a kind of a spiral motion. Now, to demonstrate what that means, and also to come back to efficiency. So when you move, everything moves. The body hears sensation, and the information is transmitted throughout. Another example of that, and you don't have to do this, I'm kind of just doing this for demonstration, is if I hold on to my foot right here and I press my toe, my toes, my big toe into my hand, the body takes a spontaneous breath in and it spirals. I am not spiraling. My body is doing this. Okay. So there's information that's being transmitted just by pressing my toe into my hand. And there's a whole body response, right? And that whole body response can continue. If I send the ground away, it's really effortless to come to this position. I might be moving around here. So there's a whole body response. And another way that we can experience kind of the way the body sends information is if I'm seated in this position and I send the floor away with my hand, if I'm sending the ground away, my body moves in a spiral. Okay. That's a natural movement pattern. So that's the third kind of core principle to remember, is that there is this blueprint within the body that when you move, everything responds, that the body moves in a spiral motion, which is really efficient. And oh my goodness, I have to add a fourth. How could I have forgotten the fourth one? The nervous system is regulated through this motion. There's a lot going on in the biology of our body, in our biochemistry when we are moving. So, oh my goodness, this fourth one, fascia is sensory. It is super sensory. So that information exchange is happening from moment to moment, not just in movement, but in your everyday life. It is sensing all the time, interacting with your nervous system. So fascia is far more than just a structure. Now, if you want to experience this embodied anatomy in motion, you can go to a video here and see if you can find some of those principles that we have explored in the session. Number one, fascial continuity. It's one fabric. When you move, everything moves. That you move from the inside out, right? There is movement from the inside out. The way movements emerge in a spiral, and how you feel when you are moving. How does it feel? Is there a soothing sensation? Is there a revitalizing sensation? So I'm really curious to hear from you what you got from this session and what you would get if you were to experience a movement session with me.